Spider-Man 1. The narrative opens with a teenager called Peter Parker chasing down a school bus, managing to leap aboard right before it drives away. This vehicle transports the class to a field trip at a genetics laboratory. Moments later, Harry Osborn pulls up in his dad's expensive automobile, welcoming his buddy Peter and introducing him to his dad, Norman Osborn. Throughout the visit, the pupils are taught about artificially altered arachnids. Peter attempts to capture an image of one, though his classmates irritate him. Shortly after, Peter approaches Mary Jane, harboring a hidden crush on her, and snaps photos of her for the campus publication. Right then, a genetically engineered spider sinks its fangs into him. At the same time, Norman Osborn and Dr. Strom converse with an armed forces official at the Oscorp corporate base regarding a formula that drastically boosts muscular power but causes mental unbalance. The commander warns them he will cut their funding unless Oscorp quickly provides triumphant outcomes. Once Peter arrives back at the residence of Uncle Ben and Aunt May following classes, his condition deteriorates progressively due to the arachnid's venom. Eventually, he passes out in his bedroom. That exact evening, Norman resolves to test the procedure on his own body. He administers the formula, granting him phenomenal might while simultaneously and gradually eroding his sanity. During a sudden rage, he murders Dr. Strom. The following dawn, Peter awakens feeling like an entirely different individual. His eyesight is flawless, and his physique is unexpectedly toned. At campus, Mary Jane trips outside the dining hall, yet Peter swiftly breaks her fall along with her food tray. She remarks that he appears completely altered without his spectacles. Within the academy's corridor, the resident bully Flash Thompson attempts to assault Peter, yet Peter dodges each strike with ease and drops him to the floor using a single motion. Soon after, Peter realizes he has the ability to scale vertical surfaces, leap across rooftops, and project biological webbing from his wrists. As Peter returns to his house that evening, he discovers Uncle Ben finished painting the cooking area by himself, despite Peter originally intending to assist. Across the roadway, Peter overhears Mary Jane's dad yelling at her. Sometime later, Peter and Mary Jane converse in the garden regarding their post-graduation plans. Peter aspires to be a professional picture taker, whereas Mary Jane confesses her desire to be a performer. At that precise second, her boyfriend Flash shows up and departs with her. The subsequent morning, Peter browses automobile costs in the daily print and spots a listing for a novice grappling competition boasting a massive cash reward. He then crafts a makeshift spider-themed outfit and resolves to head to the stadium. Uncle Ben volunteers to drive him over. Throughout the journey, Ben attempts to discuss the altercation involving Thompson. He delivers the phrase, "With great power comes great responsibility." However, Peter demands he stop attempting to substitute for his dad and exits the vehicle in a temper. Inside the venue, contenders are guaranteed $3,000, provided they endure 3 minutes battling the fighter Bonesaw McGraw. Peter registers using the alias Spider-Man. Irrespective of his novice status, he conquers Bonesaw McGraw effortlessly, courtesy of his fresh abilities. However, the promoter hands him a mere $100, arguing that the complete payout was meant solely for combatants who survive beyond the 3-minute mark. As Peter exits the room, a weapon-wielding thief abruptly rushes in and steals the cash. Peter refrains from interfering, allowing the crook to flee. Outdoors, he spots multiple law enforcement vehicles and discovers that Uncle Ben was murdered by that very same thief. Consumed by fury, Peter promptly pursues the culprit, genuinely wielding his enhanced might for the initial occasion. Eventually, he tracks the lawbreaker to a derelict structure. When the culprit attempts to fire at Peter, Peter strips him of his weapon. Startled, the thief steps back, plummets from a significant elevation, and perishes. Following the passing of Uncle Ben, Peter endeavors to comfort Aunt May, who can barely cope with her spouse's demise. Concurrently, a demonstration for a rival initiative by Oscorp occurs in the state of Nevada, showcasing a prototype armored suit. The exhibition is abruptly disrupted by Norman Osborn, who arrives riding his hoverboard. The following morning, Peter and Harry complete their high school education. Norman Osborn praises Harry upon getting his diploma and simultaneously commends Peter on winning a scientific award. Concurrently, the romance between Mary Jane and Flash Thompson dissolves. That evening, Peter weeps over Uncle Ben's passing, while Aunt May attempts to soothe him. Afterward, he observes his former grappling suit and resolves to utilize his powers for the benefit of others. Over the subsequent days, Peter crafts a fresh, highly sophisticated Spider-Man outfit and begins battling illegal activities across New York. He halts thieves, rescues blameless civilians, and slowly gains citywide fame as Spider-Man. At the same time, the lead publisher of the Daily Bugle, J. Jonah Jameson, views Spider-Man as a menace. Yet, he simultaneously acknowledges the public's obsession with the vigilante. To capitalize on this, he establishes a bounty for any pictures of Spider-Man. Sometime later, Peter encounters Mary Jane and discovers she is currently dating his buddy Harry Osborn. Subsequently, Peter initiates snapping pictures of himself amid his heroic deeds by positioning his camera in optimal spots ahead of time. He then delivers these images to the newspaper's headquarters. Jameson purchases the prints and extends Peter an employment offer as an independent photojournalist. Peter agrees to the proposal. Simultaneously, Oscorp's leader, Norman Osborn, is informed that the corporation is slated for imminent sale and that he will be ousted from his CEO position. The formal declaration is scheduled to occur at a forthcoming street fair. Eventually, the day of the celebration arrives. Peter abruptly senses an incoming threat. Norman Osborn manifests as the Green Goblin atop his flying machine. He assaults the executives, attempting to expel him from his business and assassinate multiple of them. Peter shows up as Spider-Man and engages the Green Goblin in combat. Throughout the skirmish, he wrecks Norman's hoverboard, forcing the villain to withdraw. At that instant, a structural element of the fair crumbles, sending Mary Jane plummeting downward. Nevertheless, Peter manages to rescue her promptly, returns her to secure ground, and vanishes moments later. Afterward, Mary Jane recounts to Harry the tale of Spider-Man rescuing her. Harry grows envious. Peter overhears their dialogue and observes that Mary Jane is cultivating romantic sentiments for his alter ego. Concurrently, Norman's psychological condition deteriorates. He starts conversing with his reflection in the glass. This mirrored persona compels him to definitively embrace his sinister new identity. Inside the Daily Bugle's newsroom, Jameson coins the moniker Green Goblin for the assailant. At that exact second, the villain breaches the publication's workplace, insisting on knowing the identity of the individual supplying pictures of the web-slinger. Jameson declines to sell out Peter. Moments later, Spider-Man arrives, attempting to halt the Green Goblin. However, the foe deploys a unique chemical vapor, rendering Peter momentarily senseless. Once Spider-Man regains his senses, his adversary proposes they join forces. He argues that society invariably turns its back on its champions eventually. Following this pitch, the villain vanishes once more. Shortly thereafter, the Daily Bugle prints a piece suggesting a potential alliance between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin. Consequently, societal perception of the web-slinger grows heavily fractured. Sometime later, Peter bumps into Mary Jane on the pavement and invites her out for a meal. She declines the offer, however. During her walk back, she is unexpectedly pursued by a group of thugs. Peter arrives as Spider-Man and thwarts the assailants effortlessly. In gratitude, Mary Jane shares a rainy embrace with Spider-Man, entirely unaware that Peter conceals himself beneath the disguise. The subsequent morning, the Green Goblin ignites a housing complex to draw Spider-Man out. Within the blazing structure, Peter confronts him once more. Amid their exchange, the villain attempts to sway Peter into dominating the globe alongside him. Peter, nonetheless, rejects the offer. Following this, an intense brawl ensues, causing Spider-Man to sustain a laceration to his bicep before his opponent retreats yet again. Afterwards, Aunt May hosts a Thanksgiving feast, attended by Peter, Mary Jane, Harry, and Norman Osborn. During the meal, Norman spots the gash on Peter's limb and deduces that he delivered that exact injury to Spider-Man during their recent clash. At that instant, Norman deduces Peter's secret superhero identity and hastily departs from the gathering. Concurrently, the Goblin persona increasingly dominates his psyche, compelling him to target the most cherished individual in Peter Parker's world. Moments later, the Green Goblin strikes Aunt May's residence, driving her into a deep state of trauma. Peter subsequently locates his aunt at the medical clinic, where she informs the physicians regarding a bizarre individual clad in emerald plating who assaulted her. Peter instantly grasps that his foe has uncovered his actual identity. Shortly thereafter, Mary Jane and Peter convene at the infirmary to check on Aunt May. Mary Jane confesses her fading affection for Harry, admitting her heart now belongs to the web-slinger. Cautiously, Peter hints that he is closely acquainted with the hero. All the while, Aunt May rests in her cot with shut eyes, pretending to slumber. Mary Jane grasps Peter's fingers. At that precise second, Harry walks into the patient room. Later, Harry heads back to his residence and informs his dad that Mary Jane abandoned him for Peter. He further discloses that Peter has harbored affection for her since their primary education days. Back at the clinic, Aunt May counsels Peter to ultimately reveal his emotions to Mary Jane. Peter subsequently attempts to dial Mary Jane's mobile, but the Green Goblin answers the call instead. He commands the hero to meet him at the Queensboro crossing. Spider-Man reaches the location, instantly stepping into a horrific snare. His nemesis suspends Mary Jane in one hand while jeopardizing a cable car packed with youngsters in the other. He compels Peter to choose who survives. Then, he releases both Mary Jane and the tram simultaneously. The hero snatches Mary Jane from the air and exerts all his bodily force to simultaneously secure the falling vessel of kids. In that vulnerable second, the villain launches another assault. Unexpectedly, the civilian bystanders on the overpass rally in defense of Spider-Man. They hurl debris at the Green Goblin, yelling at him to back away from their protector. This distraction allows Peter to securely deposit both the youths and Mary Jane onto a vessel passing below the structure. Immediately following this, the adversary seizes the hero and hauls him into a derelict facility. Inside, he tosses an explosive device, inflicting severe wounds upon Peter. A vicious struggle then erupts between the duo, culminating in Peter ultimately securing the victory. At the final juncture, the foe uncovers his actual persona. Beneath the helm lies Norman Osborn, the parent of his closest companion. Peter pauses, unwilling to execute his best friend's dad. Norman seizes this brief hesitation, covertly attempting to strike Peter from the rear using his flying apparatus. However, Spider-Man senses the peril promptly and dodges the incoming threat. Rather than striking the hero, the hoverboard impales Norman. Moments before passing away, Norman begs Peter to keep the dark reality of his villainous identity hidden from Harry. Sometime later at the manor, Harry discovers his father's deceased form, which had been delivered by the web-slinger. During the burial service, Harry ultimately vows to exact vengeance upon Spider-Man. Following the ceremony, Mary Jane admits her romantic feelings for Peter, yet Peter recognizes that pursuing a romance would constantly put her life at risk. Consequently, he gently rejects her advances, departing while leaving Mary Jane bewildered.